Every family has a weird uncle or a crazy cousin, and city groups are usually no different. I mean, sure, all of us have quirks in our own way, but sometimes we have people in our group who, for one reason or another, make leading a city group really hard. In this video, I want to give you some city group help on what to do when you have difficult people. We begin with the 3 Ds: define the mission, describe the present, and diagnose the problems. First, the mission of city groups is community, care, and mission. These are meant to be spaces where we are living out the core identities of a disciple with other disciples who build each other up to be more and more like Jesus. So in our city groups, we are encouraging one another, we're bearing each other's burdens, confessing our sins, rejoicing with one another, weeping with one another, and ultimately we're growing in our love for Jesus as we fulfill the one another commands in the Bible. In other words, city groups are meant to be places both where we feel comfortable because it's a family and where we feel uncomfortable because it's a family that aims toward the mission of making and maturing disciples. Second, describe the present. When I said that this video is about difficult people, you likely had a name or two come to mind. Perhaps it's someone who is argumentative and judgmental and just plain rude, or someone who has a lot of needs in many different areas of life, financial, marriage, mental health, and so on. Or a person who is oblivious to their sin and apathetic to growing as a Christian. Or a person who dominates the conversation and constantly sidetracks the group with what they want to discuss rather than the topic at hand. Or it's someone who has caused a significant conflict with someone else in the group. Or it's someone who's very reserved so that it's hard to draw them out of their shell. Or maybe it's simply someone who's just very different from you. You don't have a lot in common. Human beings are so silly in so many different ways, and I won't be able to capture every nuance of your difficult person. For this step, describe exactly what makes that person difficult and be as specific as you can without assuming motive or reasons. What are the exact words or actions that raised a yellow or a red flag for you? Include how you felt during those situations. Finally, diagnose the problems. As always, try to brainstorm what might be behind these difficulties without judgment or blame. Don't leap to, this person is a sinner, that's why they're doing this. But also don't ignore the presence of sin if you see it. Try to see the person in the best possible light. Step back and get a wider picture. Maybe talk to your co-leader to get their perspective, or to me to get an outside view. I want to recommend a previous video that I made called City Groups 101, Conflict and Group Dynamics. It's linked below. In the video, I discuss this central principle. Group dynamics get uncomfortable when we ignore them. So the best way to bring those dynamics to a healthy place is to talk about them. When there are difficult things in your group, you want to create a culture where it is normal and safe to talk about what is going on in the relationship, whether that means the group as a whole or one-on-one relationships. So that video will give you a lot of tools to have those conversations. But here are 4 more steps that you can take to address the problem of difficult people in your city group. First, notice your bias. What I mean is notice how you are not an objective observer. There might be some things that this person is doing that really raise your hackles in particular. What is this person doing that bothers you specifically? And how might it affect the way that you treat them? For example, I know for myself that I have a hard time when someone talks and talks just to hear their own voice without any self-awareness that they've been monologuing for minutes on end. So if I have someone like that in my group, I need to know that I will be tempted to treat this person harshly just because they grate on my nerves. But what you're doing in this step is setting yourself up to be thoughtful and intentional rather than reactive. Second, pray for grace. Who has the most experience with dealing with difficult people in the history of the world? God does, and He handles those conflicts perfectly. So pray for God to give you His heart for this person. Pray for forgiveness, renouncing revenge. Pray for wisdom to know how to hold good boundaries with both truth and love. Pray for protection for yourself as you speak and act so that you can speak and act in a Christ-like way. Pray for the health of your group and that God would unite you all in love. Third, be clear and kind. Another way to say it is to speak with truth and love. When you are addressing issues with a difficult person, and by the way, you do need to address things. You can't simply let it slide if it's harming the rest of the group. Then you need both of these qualities to do that. If you're only clear without kindness, you will be blunt and too hard. If you're only kind without clarity, you will never actually have the conversation that you need to have. So this is the balance to strive for. For example, once you get this person alone to have a chat, you might say something like, "Listen, I've noticed a troubling trend that you are constantly taking over the discussion times with off-topic questions. I really love your curiosity. You have a great mind, and it's clear that you feel really comfortable in our group to ask the questions that are on your mind, but I need you to limit them for the sake of everyone else in the group. Can we come up with a place where we could talk about those questions you have and not distract everybody?" Now, as much as it's within your power, you want the other person to walk away thinking, "Okay, I know that my leader is being honest with me, and I know that they care for me." Fourth, ask yourself, what does love demand? I can't give specific advice on how to resolve every issue, but this is the guiding question that will help you in many situations. By love, I mean love for everyone involved. Love for you, love for the difficult person, love for the rest of your group, for your co-leader, and so on. Sometimes loving this person well simply means having an honest conversation with them about the issue, and Lord willing, they'll be teachable and listen to your concern. Sometimes love will demand bringing other people into the conversation to resolve a conflict. And sometimes love will demand asking the person not to attend your group anymore. Now, there's a lot of nuances and complexities that would lead to such a decision, of course, but love should be our standard and the motive behind everything that we do. What if you need more help? If you've thought through all these things, you've done these steps, and things are still not going well, then call in me or one of the other pastors or elders. We can't solve every problem, but this might be a place where pastoral care could help you come up with a solution or resolve a conflict. These kinds of difficult situations have a tendency to make us feel insecure and second-guess ourselves. So remember your calling. God has called you to love your city group well, even if it means confronting someone or challenging them in an area of growth. I'm really comforted by the promise that Jesus gives us in Matthew 18. He said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them." So Jesus is with you in the room when you're trying to love a difficult person, and he is working in you and through you. I hope that this city group help was helpful. Until next time, leaders.